Guruji, the question was, when the actions are performed selfishly, actions may not be consistent. Explain.
You're right. And we have asked that in the context of the 22nd verse of the 9th chapter, where we learned that how consistency of action is essential to reach one's goal, and whether the goal be materialistic goal or a spiritual goal, you need to have this essential quality of making one's actions consistent. Right. Yes, sir.
In my understanding, Guruji, any selfish actions always meant for striving for and fulfill the desires. So wanting more and trying to satisfy the needs. So never it will be a peaceful. I mean to say, always there is an turbulence in the mind. So I strongly feel that there could leads to an inconsistent actions. Like whenever there was a selfless actions we perform, and in my perception, in my personal view, it gives a lot of peace. When there is a peace, the actions are more of consistent in nature.
I think you have actually answered it in your own words.
Yes.
You got it. The question was that if you carefully observe any selfish action, it is difficult to keep selfish actions consistently to be performed. But when you're unselfish or selfless, your actions are more favorable towards being consistent. And we asked, what are the reasons, or can you reconcile how this statement makes sense? Reddy Garu gave a valid logic. Let me hear from others. Anybody else has an answer? Sanjay, have any thoughts?
When I was thinking about the question, it was more about if the actions are selfish, there's no consistency because what the self wants is constantly changing. So we're not actually fixing, it doesn't, maybe we're not fixing a goal, or the goal isn't lofty enough, or we lower the goal so we can reach it. We start kidding ourselves about what the goal is. So that was the way I was thinking about it, is that when an action is selfish, we're not able to create that required fixed goal, that required lofty goal. That's why we're not consistent.
But Sanjay, if you remember the last class, throughout we have actually consistently maintained that a goal means it has to be beyond your selfish interest. So if it is to pursue your own personal desires or hidden motives, it is not a goal. So when you're performing selfish actions, your actions tend to be more inconsistent. But when you perform unselfish actions, your actions are more consistent. Okay, get it? No, but you're talking about the very object of pursuit only changing. So what I want today is not what I want tomorrow. So it keeps, you keep shifting your wants. In that sense, I don't want to spell it out because I'll be answering myself.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
Okay, right. I get you. Okay, right. Yes, Harish?
Guruji, my answer I came up with was If we are selfish, based on selfish actions and inconsistency, my answer is we don't get any help from any channels, and we are constantly suffering from agitation and bondages. Vis-a-vis, when the actions are unselfish and consistent, then we will always get help based on our own unselfish actions, and we get liberated from that.
Harish, could you go a little slow on the first part, please?
Okay, the connection between a selfish action and inconsistency is that we will not get help from any channels in our life, and we will constantly suffer from agitation and bondages with that attitude of selfishness. Vis-a-vis, with an unselfish action, we will always get help from some channels based on our own unselfish actions and goals. And with that unselfish actions, we will also gain steadfastness and liberation with our lives. And people with unselfish actions, we will have a tendency to be in satsang mode more often.
But the independent analysis is good, but how does it help with actions being consistent or inconsistent? You're not drawing that connect.
Okay.
See, what has selfishness got to do with inconsistency? What's the connect there? That's the question.
Okay. Well, would it be correct to say that the connection is that because we constantly have different desires changing all the time, that we keep jumping from one desire to another? So there's always going to be a selfish mode in that. So there's never a consistency towards that. I don't know how to explain it, but towards that goal. So hence, as we constantly jump with our desires, so can never have a consistency. I don't know if I'm answering that correctly.
You're almost there. You're almost there. You're right. Yes. Almost there. Almost like what Sanjay has said, you know. Yes. Any thanks, Harish. Any further inputs? All of you, all, even Padminima is almost saying, but you're not spelling it out. What exactly is it that is I find there is a sort of a missing link or a clarity there. Now, the points, there are two reasons why your selfish actions are inconsistent. Firstly, when your actions are driven by the, sorry, what's happening? Yeah, when the actions are driven by the mind, your mind pitches in various desires. So the desires are constantly changing. That's one thing. And also what is changing is the mind also is very fickle. So not only does the desires keep changing, but the nature of the mind also contributes to the actions being inconsistent. So when you say actions are inconsistent, primarily is because you're operating on the mind. And the nature of the mind is it keeps wavering. So you can't keep to a point because the mind is like a feather in a summer breeze. It has no direction or dimension. It's very fickle. It keeps going here and there. So it is difficult to pursue or give a direction. It's difficult to give a direction because there is no intellect here. So apart from what Sanjay and Harish has said, what I'm adding is the very nature of the mind itself. One is that you may pursue many desires in the course of you chasing your endless desires. While you're pursuing one desire, your mind may switch, because that's the very nature of the mind. It's very fickle. They compare the mind to a monkey. So unless until you oversee or police the mind, it's not possible to keep the mind at a place. For example, as the satsang is going on, it's possible that your mind can waver right now. It's possible that your mind goes to different things. So you need to keep the mind in the present with the help of your intellect. And if you don't do that, you allow the mind to wander. Now, this is one reason. The second reason is, whenever you are selfish, as Reddy Garu had said, whenever you are selfish, your mind is agitated. And when your mind is agitated, it clouds your intellect. And that's how your actions become inconsistent. Vis-a-vis, when you are unselfish, the mind, so unselfish actions give the mind a sense of peace. So it is the mental climate that you create that becomes conducive for your actions. So when your mind is agitated, you can't think. And when you can't think, you cannot perform actions properly, forget consistently. You can't even think, you can't even act. So you're far from consistent. So these are the two primary reasons. The very nature of the mind, unpoliced, ungoverned mind is fickle. And also the desires keep fluctuating, jumping from one to other. Second is when the mind is agitated, it doesn't provide a conducive environment for the intellect to think clearly. And when you don't think, you can't act. So therefore, the formula for an ideal action. What is the formula for ideal action? So beautiful. In the 64th verse of chapter 2, he says, intellect produces peace. Chapter 2, verse 64. And the very next verse, he says, peace produces intellect. 65. So this is the formula for any action which should give you peace and prosperity. Intellect produces peace, peace produces intellect. So with reference to the context, the first statement we said, intellect produces peace. When you don't operate with an intellect, you operate on the mind, it produces agitation. And agitation doesn't produce an environment where your actions can be consistent. The second piece produces intellect is when you operate in a peaceful environment, the intellect becomes erect. The intellect becomes operational. And that's when you are able to police your actions. That's when you're able to give a direction to your actions. That's when your actions are consistent. Venkatji, all okay?
Yes, Guruji. All well.
Good to have you back, sir. Right. Yepyanya devata bhaktaha yajante shraddhayanvitaha tepi mameva kaunteya yajantya vidhi purvakam. Yepyanya devata bhaktaha yajante shraddhayanvitaha tepi mameva kaunteya yajantya vidhi purvakam. Now here he says, even those devotees who endowed with Shraddha, Shraddha is translated as faith, even those devotees endowed with Shraddha worship other gods, they also worship me alone. O Kaunteya, though contrary to traditional practice, avidhi purvakam, yajanti means worship. They worship, but it is contrary to traditional practice. So what is tradition? Traditionally, people only and always sought moksha, self-realization. Anything other than self-realization, if you entertain a thought of non-self-realization, is non-tradition. So any other goal other than self-realization, you are not orthodox, non-traditional. So the traditional practice is not to compromise the thought of the self. The grandeur and the purpose of self-realization not only has to be conceived, but should be pursued. But if you fall anything short of that, it is non-traditional. So tradition is that one pursues life. In the pursuit of life, the purpose of life, when you say tradition, it is to pursue self-realization. Now, when you say self-realization, obviously the term self-realization is very vague. Now, how do you describe self-realization in known terms? You will call it as infinite happiness. Again, it's not known, but we are describing in terms of happiness. If you want to say happiness, it is infinite happiness. If you want to talk of power, it is infinite power. If you talk of peace, it is infinite peace. Now, why I'm intentionally using these words? Here he says, even those devotees who don't seek the self, mean that non-traditional people, who worship the gods, they also worship me. Now, for example, whenever the scriptures have used the word gods, what do you understand the word gods mean? Gayatri Ma, I'm sure you would know. The term gods, worship the gods.
Ritualistic idol, what we worship. Gods.
So I was wrong. I said, you might know, Ilya, so I'm wrong. Not that your answer is wrong, I am wrong. What is gods here? Worship the other gods means what? Gods, plural in comparison with the singular God. The word singular God, G-O-D, always means Brahman. So worshipping God means worshipping Brahman. That is tradition. Those who worship the gods, they are practicing non-tradition. And what do the gods mean? Gods only symbolize your mundane pursuits, worldly pursuits. So it is not, Gayatri Ma, when you say, what does the gods mean in the context? I'm not talking of the ritualistic worship. Gods symbolize your worldly pursuit. So somebody who is running behind wants to acquire wealth. You want to amass as much wealth as you can. How much wealth one can amass? You may say 100 crores. You can amass 10,000 crores. You can amass 100,000 crores. There is no limit to how much you can amass. You get it? So a person who is amassed, let's say, the other day somebody came to me, his fortune was 4,000 crores. His net worth, 4,000 crores, that man. Now, you go to him, and I know because he came to seek some counsel from me. And I know for certain he is not happy, he is not contented. And he told me, I'm doing this and I want to get that. I've got this, I want to get that. Now, I'm only trying to explain what this verse is saying. Those who worship other gods, they also worship me, he's saying. What is me? The word me means Brahman, the self. The self of Brahman means it is infinite happiness, of infinite power, or infinite peace. So a person who has got X amount of wealth, or X amount of power, or X amount of happiness, he is not content with that happiness. He is not content with what he has got. Why is he not content? Because he is seeking infinite happiness. He is seeking infinite bliss. He wants infinite power. I've got so much power, but he is not content with the power he has got. He wants to acquire a little more power. So that greed or avarice or that wanting to acquire more, that insatiable nature in wanting to seek, the Lord is saying, they are only seeking me, he's saying. Look at that way he says. He's only saying, since they are not content with it, they end up seeking it. And since they keep seeking it, they keep pitching up something higher, they keep running behind something else, because the quality of worldly pursuit is VAP. What is the quality of worldly pursuit, VAP?
Constantly changing.
In
Change
the context,
is the quality.
No, in the context of what we are saying, you have X amount of wealth with you. You have X amount of power with you. You have X amount of happiness with you. Now, what is the nature of that wealth or power or happiness you have?
Two ways of looking at it. One is you want more. It's never ending and never satisfying.
It is never
Ending or never enough or satisfying.
there is no satisfaction to it. There is no satiation to it. But what is it that you're doing? I'm not talking of VAP here. I'm talking about all those people who are worshipping the gods. No, first tell me, do you fall into the traditional category or non-traditional category?
Non-traditional at this point, yes.
Right. So I'm not surprised. So you're being very true. You're being very true. So being true that you are the non-traditional category, you're worshipping the gods. Now, how are you worshipping the gods? Gayatrima, put the verse translation again. My job is to make you all think. That's all. I don't have to give answers. Now, the question is, how are you pursuing the gods?
With faith.
Now, the word faith here is a very lukewarm translation of the Sanskrit word Shraddha. Shraddha is far more than faith, as you know that. Shraddha is that real consistency of pursuit. So how are you consistently, what are you consistently pursuing?
The worldly desire, worldly pursuits.
Correct. You are consistently pursuing the worldly happiness. You're worshipping the gods, but alas, you don't realize you are not going to find that in your pursuit, because all your life you'll be chasing. So he just trying to accommodate the majority of the non-traditional category people and say, don't worry, you're also worshipping me. So when you worship Goddess Lakshmi, you're worshipping Brahman. You worship Lord Hanuman, you're worshipping me. You worship Lakshmi, you're worshipping me. Whatever form you worship, whatever gods you worship, you're only worshipping me. But remember, in fact, the 24th and 25th verse is going to spell it out. Remember, this has a limited end. Those who follow tradition, they go to the ultimate. He first accommodates you and then says, my dear friend, this is limited. Please understand that. So the real grandeur, in fact, the next verse is also going to say this, the real grandeur of a person is, before we get there, I ask you, the real grandeur of a person is?
No.
See, I'm just going with the thought flow. I'm just trying to build one on other. But I can understand when you say you can't relate to. But the real beauty and grandeur of a person is based on how grand is your thought. The real greatness of a man is defined by how grand is your thought. Sometimes, when you look at your organization, you'll have clerks, you'll have the entry-level workers, the clerks and peons, and then you'll have normal employees, you'll have managers, you'll have senior managers, you'll have directors. I don't know the order, but they are there, and then you are at the top of the helm. At the very bottom, from the top, you see the bottom at the clerical level. You will find they may not be as ethical as others, and they'll steal petty things. What do you look at them and say, how small they are? Don't you think so?
Mm-hmm.
How little is their thinking? They're very content in just getting this, getting that, little, they do this. So you feel sorry for their childishness or their smallness in thinking. Exactly the same way the masters are looking at us and laughing at us and scoffing at us and saying, why are you just running behind the world, worshipping the gods? Why are you seeking the path of non-tradition? Why don't you seek the traditional path? Seek the very source, seek the very Brahman itself. But for that, you need to have that grandeur of thought to be able to conceive Brahman. But one who falls short of it compromises with whatever comes his way, and yet pays the price for not seeking traditional path. When you read the translation, you don't get this message, but you need to decode it. You need to squeeze the essence of what the verse is saying. Am I making sense to you now? Is the verse making sense?
Yes, Guru.
So therefore, the encouragement is try to change what you're pursuing. It's not what you're doing. You can do the same thing what you have done yesterday, you will have to do today, you'll do tomorrow. Means the same field of action. Your Swadharma can't change. How can your Swadharma change overnight? This Janma, you will remain what your Dharma is, whatever your nature is. But what you can change is what you seek in that. Can something hold you back? You can just be an ordinary housewife. You can be a lady who attends to the home. But is it not possible to seek Brahman in that?
It is.
So what holds you back from conceiving Brahman? Now, what right now I ask you, what holds you back from conceiving self-realization? Oh, sorry, Guruji, I don't think I am fit. I'm cut for that. This Janma, I don't think I can. Next Janma, maybe I will try. Can't you even accommodate the thought and say, yes, sir, I want to seek it. I am the truth. And Chapalera? Chapachikada? That's all. You may say, why am I talking in this pitch? I'm leading you to the next verse. The next verse, he spells it out. He spells it out. But before we get there, he is hitting it hard. So Shraddha is that determined, intelligent, determined course of action. There's a dedication, there's commitment, there's fixation. But he's only trying to accommodate us here. You know, we keep saying that Hinduism is one of the richest of all religions. In fact, all religions put together are dwarfed in the grandeur of Hinduism. So Hinduism as a religion is too grand compared to all other isms. And what Hinduism has done is far difficult to fathom itself. Now, what they have done is, as you understand, I've mentioned it a few times, the objective of these gurus were to pull the mind from the world and plant it onto the self. And they found it was difficult because the mind is attached. Venkatji, is it possible for me to pull your mind out of what you're doing?
Yes, I'm doing
Yes,
nothing.
Huh?
I'm doing nothing. I'm just listening to you.
No, I'm not saying now. I'm saying, can I pull your mind out of what that fascinates you in life, in your career, in your profession, in your life, and say, pull that mind out of it and say, seek Brahman. Can I do that?
Probably not fully. Yes.
Probably not. In spite of your utmost cooperation, it would be rather difficult. You will, out of respect, you will not stop trying. You'll try, but still, at some point, you'll give up, isn't it? So what these masters have realized, that they were unable to pull the mind, which is hooked on to something in the world, to unhook it and pull it onto the self. They couldn't latch the mind onto the self because people were preoccupied with the worldly affairs. And what then came this ingenious idea, way before all these gods and goddesses existed, I'm saying. All this is the mastermind of these gods and of these great gurus. All these forms of the various gods and goddesses is the mastermind of the Vedic masters who introduced these forms. So wherever, instead of pulling the mind of what it is pursuing, what they did is they understood, they studied where all the mind is going. Where all does the mind go? Ramji, where all does human mind go, Ramji? In the pursuit of, in the course of their life, what all does one pursue in their life?
It will go everywhere because it is a mind, so it will keep going everywhere. But in general, if I have to say that mind will obviously go to something that is tangible, means which can be touched and felt, and which is actually there for you to see. So whether it is money, whether it is pleasure, whether it is asset, or whether it is another person, or whatever it is, these are all tangible things. So mind will get fixed onto these tangible things more as rewards for their work.
So mind keeps rushing to seek happiness, seek pleasure, seek comfort. It wants wealth, it wants name, it wants many things. So if you study the mind, what all the mind wants, they studied the mind in detail. And wherever the mind went, they planted a god or a goddess.
Yeah.
So if you look in Hindu religion, everything is divinized. Marriage is a ritual, birth is a ritual, death is a ritual, Upanayana is a ritual, naming ceremony is a ritual. The first time they put food in your mouth is a ritual. Every stage of your life is a ritual. Puberty is a ritual. Everything is a ritual in life. In a Hindu person's life, everything is celebrated. And when you celebrate it, there it is divinized. So to run, so gods only symbolize worldly pursuits. But God, Brahman, is the absolute pursuit. Yes, sir.
I think giving gods for each of the activities, like Lakshmi for wealth and Saraswati for education, these are all things which are basically done even, I mean, as you are saying, I think these are the things which actually have divinized some of these things that we pursue. And but it is also there in some of the other places, some of the other cultures, like if you see the Greeks and the Romans and others, they also had attached some kind of a god to each of these activities. So maybe it was felt to be, I mean, across many places, they might have felt that this is the surest way of making people see divinity in some of the actions that they do. Maybe. I don't know whether that's correct or not. But
it is, but of all religions, Hinduism dates back way beyond other religions.
that is okay. That's okay.
So many others have drew inspiration from this and they incorporate it in their own language. You know, like the elements are worshipped, the fire is worshipped, the nature is worshipped, the plants are worshipped, the birds and beasts, or everything is worshipped in Hinduism, isn't it? The only thing is that's the best way to think of the higher in your worldly activities.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll get lost in the quagmire of perceptions and actions. You get lost in them.
I know, sir. But the ordinary man thinks that acquiring more wealth is actually worshipping Goddess Lakshmi.
So that's where actually some level of education is required, that this is only the, I mean, what we have learned from you only, that purpose is what matters in all these acquisitions. But
Who is the consort of Lakshmi?
Vishnu,
And whenever you see Vishnu and Lakshmi, where is Lakshmi?
at his feet.
So the Lakshmi, goddess Lakshmi, is seated at the feet of Lord Vishnu. Vishnu symbolizes the reality. So the wealth you acquire will serve you well only when you use it for a cause beyond yourself. If you use it for your own selfish aggrandizement, the very same wealth becomes anartham, becomes a calamity.
Yes, sir.
There's nothing wrong with pursuit of wealth, but when it is used as a means to serve a larger cause, then it's a blessing. Otherwise, it's a curse.
Very true, sir.
So they have placed Lakshmi at the feet of Lord Vishnu. So she was not arrogant with all her wealth. So one should not become arrogant with wealth.
Yes, sir.
Right, sir. So let's move on. 24. Harsh, good to see you. Good to have you. Are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm right here. Good afternoon. Good to be here as well.
But I'm not able to see you, Harsh.
Yes, sir, I'm having some issue with my video camera. I'll be fixing it by the next meeting. I'll join you next Sunday as well.
Great. Look forward. In fact, just to brief everyone of Harsh, it was lovely meeting Harsh other day. He just happened to come for his evening walk at Sainik Puri near the foundation, the institute rather, and he just knocked at the door and he came and met, and it was wonderful meeting him. And he's doing, what are you doing in Bangalore? Harsh, please tell.
So thank you so much for the kind introduction, first of all. Hello, everybody. My name is Harshvardhan. I'm a 20-year-old. I'm in my second year of my college. I'm doing my bachelor's from business administration from Bangalore, St. Joseph's University. And as Guruji mentioned, I was just passing by the Wisdom Foundation. I thought it would be really interesting to have a half-an-hour conversation with him and hopefully pick something from his mind. So did I just call him, and we had a nice talk, and Guruji invited me to this Sunday sessions. So here I am, looking forward to learn more.
Great. It was lovely. In fact, I almost Harsh completely charmed all of us, isn't it, Rajima? We all were very charmed by his perception and how ready he was to this wisdom. So I said, "You are a blessed child," and very happy to have you, Harsh, here. All right, great.
So please, thank you for the kind words again.
Great. So if anything that you don't follow, anything, feel free. As you see, the platform is to clarify, and the methodology I engage is to have a dialogue. So anytime you have anything, feel free. All right. Okay. Move on. We'll take 24. Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha natu mam abhijananti tatvenatyascha vantite. Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha natu mam abhijananti tatvenatyascha vantite. I am indeed the enjoyer and also the Lord of all yajnas, means sacrifices, but they do not me in essence, hence they fall. Chevantite. Chevantite means they fall. No mercy. Since these fellows don't know me, in essence, means since they are not seeking the tradition, they will not know me in essence. They fall back into the limited existence. So those who run after the limited goals, yes, ma'am. Those who run after the limited goals, they know me not. They don't know me in essence. They fall back into the cycle of birth and death. So they perform actions, they acquire some punya, and they fall back into the samsara of birth and death. Harish, tell me, seriously, does that inspires you? You do some karma, acquire some punya, and fall back into the cycle of birth and death, and again, born again, and again go through the same cycle and die again. Does this life inspire you?
No, Guruji.
It shouldn't, isn't it? Not that my tone has changed, but there's nothing great in it to be bound by this to this. Well, you use the word bondage, isn't it?
Yes.
There's nothing beautiful in getting bound to this cycle of birth and death. There's nothing beautiful. So any one of us who fail to attain realization will be born again. And I keep saying, and there's no harm in saying. And what do I say, RM? She'll say, you say many things. How do I say, what do you say? Nah.
Guruji, I'm thinking of this verse from Bhaja Govindam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Jananam. Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Jatare Shayanam.
Punarapi Janani Jatare Shayani.
Shayanam.
Iha samsare bahudustare.
Bahudustare.
Kripaya pare
Pahi
pahi
Murare. Yes, Guruji.
No, but there's nothing wrong in just saying. Even if it is lip service, you should say that I have no plans to come back to the cycle of birth and death. I have no plan. No, don't say, no, I am not ready for it. And I am going to, don't even think. There is no harm in saying, I am not interested in this bondage of the cycle of birth and death. I don't want to be born again. Aparagaru seems to be having his own plans. He is quite comfortably relaxed. So I gather a lot from that.
Guruji, I was just, I was thinking about my mother when you say I don't, my mother says I'm not going to take
Correct.
So
Absolutely.
She's one step above what you're saying. I felt, So my mother said, I'm not going to take birth. I said, you did so many things. I said, no, I'm not going to take. So I was just stopping it.
No, I remember. Yes, you are absolutely right. So there's no harm in thinking in those lines and have shraddha and faith in those lines that I don't want to be bound to the cycle of birth. So in the first half of the verse, he says, I am indeed the enjoyer and also the Lord of all yajnas. I am the enjoyer of all yajnas on sacrifices means I am that which backs all the actions. I am the knowing principle. I am the Lord of all yajnas. Means everything is happening because of me, the consciousness. And since people who don't understand that Lord and the self, they fall back into the cycle. So one who is inspired by that goal, SR, one who is inspired by the goal, he or she will not waste his time or will not be interested in anything else but that goal.
Yes, Guruji, but still the motivation levels for human beings, I mean to say, it's still not been, having been known lofty goal and having been known the moksha is going to become, if you approach that, I mean to say, there is a secret to the success is been known, but still we don't follow. Still we don't follow that. Still get pulled out with our day-to-day holy affairs.
The mind takes precedence, the mind gets drawn away. You know, one of the things that you all should do, which you all are not doing, you know, there are two pedals to spiritual growth. One is the knowledge and reflection, which you should do. The second is withdrawal from the world. What you have is, there's enough knowledge and wisdom for you all to contemplate and reflect on. But what you are not able to do is withdraw from the worldly activities and spend time on this knowledge. Therefore, you're not able to consolidate these ideas. You appreciate it. You understand the beauty and the value of these ideas, but you don't have the vairagya to drop the world and say, I want to pursue this. Sir, you're muted.
You're perfectly right, Guruji. Like knowledge and reflection is somehow we put in practice, but withdrawal from the worldly affairs is just beyond our thought, and we get magnetized. Like we are getting, as we once you told me that these are all like a magnet and iron. So the wood is not coming on the way, which can separate between the magnet and the worldly affairs, the iron. So still the day starts with the dragging on to these things. It's just either we call it as a motivates you or pulls you. The power of those actions are really make everyone to get attracted.
No, but there is no other way. The more you go out into the world will suck you more.
Yeah.
You will have to drop it. Not tomorrow, now, this moment. Unless until you do that, there is no way you can pursue the higher. Impossible. The world is too strong. It's like a very powerful magnet, and you are an innocuous little metal piece. No chance. No chance.
Guruji, I don't know how far that statement works for me. Like recently I come across one of the businessmen who was from abroad, who has come forward to India and who want to put up in some sort of a startup company with a forecast of nearly making around 1,500 to 2,000 crores in the next 3 years plan. So you want to enroll in that particular project. Then I think it took for me 2 to 3 days and finally said no. I said, there's no end for that. Then that 1,500 becomes 2,000, 2,000 becomes some X numbers in that part. I said, enough is enough. I think last one of the sessions where we had it. So coincident that I just interacted with him, I attended the enough is enough class. Then I said enough. So I could understand the agony from my rest of the children and everybody. I said, what nonsense they use as good as, and what nonsense decision you took it. I said, yes, I stand by what I took it. You have energy, you pursue, but definitely not from my end.
Yeah, there's so much that you can do to get caught up, but there's that much you should do to get yourself away from whatever you think becomes a deterrent to your goal. Yeah. It's very, very important. If you're not able to take that call, so the two pedals to a spiritual path is you must withdraw from the world. The withdrawal from the world, what it does is it makes your mind available. Today your mind is not available. You are giving you 1 hour a week. You think you've done great favor to me by appearing on the class. You're not doing any favor to the Guru. Understand? You're doing some favor to yourself by coming to the class. So
Yes.
by withdrawing from the world, you're creating one of the essential quality for spiritual pursuit is mental availability. Today, your mind is preoccupied with the various activities and you find it justifiable to be occupied and preoccupied. And a mind which is preoccupied, how can it think of the higher?
Yes. No possibility at all.
It cannot. In fact, I'm reminded of the famous words of Adi Shankaracharya in Bhajagovindam. He says, Balastavat Kridasaktah Tarunastavat Tarunisaktah Vruddhastavat Chintasaktah Parame Brahmani Kopinasaktah. He says, as a child, Sanjay, that verse says, as a child, you're lost in play and toys. Krida means play. Tarunastava Taruni Sakta. As a youth, you're lost in passion. Passion for money, passion for name, passion for power, passion for woman, passion for worldly acquisition. If this is not the age of running and acquiring, when will I acquire? So all your youth is lost in passion. As an old man, vruddhastavat chinta saktah. As an old man, you start worrying, unnecessary worry. What will happen if I die? World will be a little more peaceful. Everyone will be better off. Don't worry, what will happen if I die? So don't worry, unnecessarily worrying. So worry. And then he says, Parame Brahmani Kopina Sattha. He's saying hardly anybody has time to think of the Lord. The Lord is complaining. So if you look at in your life, at some stage in your life, your mind is preoccupied with something or other. Either it's play or it's passion or it's worry. Where do people have time to think of the higher? Nobody has time. But one who is able to withdraw from the push and the pull, just stand back and say, I don't want to be driven by the mere pull of the temptations of the outer world, nor am I want to fall a prey to the push of my senses and my desires and vasanas. I'm able to hold back myself from the push and the pull of the world and examine that life has a purpose. And the moment you withdraw from the push and pull, believe me, that withdrawal creates that mental availability. And the moment the mind is available, give it this wisdom, give it this knowledge to contemplate. And the more you contemplate and reflect, you gain more strength to withdraw further. And the further you withdraw, you create an opportunity to reflect further. The more you reflect, the more strength you gain for what? To withdraw further. So these are the two pedals to your spiritual growth: withdrawal and knowledge. It starts with withdrawal. Aren't you withdrawing from your worldly activities at least for this moment, for an hour or so? Have you not kept all your activities aside? Have you not kept aside all other appointments and say, I am not interested in anything else, but I want to lend my ears to this wisdom? Are you not cut off the world for temporary? Can you imagine if you have, but don't overdo it. If you overdo it, you'll get frustrated. So there's a very thin line. There's a capacity. You have a capacity of withdrawal. So withdraw to that extent, supplement with knowledge. Many people who withdraw don't supplement with knowledge. So they go mad. Those who have knowledge don't withdraw. They become hypocrites. Oh, I know everything. But then you're not able to live it. So either you go mad because you're not ready for it, you're not giving a higher thought, or you become hypocritical. So to have that right balance is very important. The least you can do is withdraw into the sanctuary of the early hours of Brahma Muhurtam. That you don't have to run away from the world. 4 a.m. You have no choice but to get up. But you find every reason not to get up. I'm tired of saying it. 25th verse. Yanti deva vrata devan Petrunyanti pitruvrataha Bhutani yanti bhutejaha Yanti madhyajinopi mam Yanti deva vrata devan Petrunyanti pitruvrataha Bhutani yanti bhutejaha Yanti madhyajinopi mam. Now here, as I've said, in this verse, he spells it out. Those who worship the devas, the senses go to devas. Yanti deva vrata devan pitrunyanti pitruvrataha. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. The worshippers of the bhutani, the elements, go to elements. And those who worship me come to me. He can't be as point blank upright as he has been. Those who worship the devas, the senses go to the devas. Now in this verse, he's talking about the three worshippers who are seeking material ends and one worshipper who is seeking the self. So one is spiritual, other three are material. But the principle which underlines all these four seekers one and the same. What is the principle? A familiar idea, nothing new, a familiar idea. What is the principle that governs all this? Jayashrima, what is the principle that governs all these four people?
What four people, sir?
The four people here, that is the devas, those who worship the devas, those who worship the ancestors, those who worship the elements, vis-a-vis those who worship the gods, with the Brahman rather, means the self, not gods, but Brahman. So those who worship the devas, the senses, go to the senses.
Yes.
You worship the ancestor, you go to ancestors. You worship the elements, you go to elements. You worship the self, you come to me, he says. So what's the principle underlying all these four seekers?
Worship different.
They are worshipping different things, but what is the common principle in their worship? In fact, there's a law.
Reaching the goal is consciousness.
No, they're not reaching the same goal. Each one is reaching different goals, isn't it?
The way you think, the way you go, there you will reach. This is the main thing.
Correct. The law of attachment is what you think so you become.
Yes.
There you go, there you become.
Yes.
What you think, so you become. This is the law of attachment. So you think, what are you thinking? You think of your children, you become the children.
No.
You think of your grandchildren, you become a grandchildren.
No, going to.
What
Krishna
going to?
says, come to me. That is the goal.
You think of Krishna, you become Krishna.
No,
what I'm saying is you become means you reach that goal.
Yeah. Yes.
But the process is as you think.
Yes.
In fact, in the 22nd verse, he said Ananya Chinta.
Yeah.
So that Ananya Chinta is what he's saying. The question is, what are you thinking about? Right?
Yes.
Right. Now, all we need to change is what we are thinking about. It is a fixation of thought that matters. So what does he mean, devas, Here the words devas or the gods here refers to the senses. The worshippers of the senses means those who are seeking sensual pleasures. Those who are giving a license to the senses means you give a license to your tongue, you give a license to your eyes, you give a license to your skin, all the jnanendriyas. So all those who are merely content in self gratification or sense gratification, they go to the devas. What do you understand by that? I don't understand. Reddy Garu and me are both same boat. I don't understand. Reddy Garu doesn't understand. So can some wise person in the classroom explain what does it mean? UK will explain. Ayyo, enada. I know what you thought.
No, not like that, Guruji, whether I'll be
Ah.
able to do it properly or not. That was the
No, I could read your mind. That I know you are so polished that you can't say all that. Yes, ma.
Like if you are after the worldly pleasures, you will be only going for them and you will be enjoying them. That is the only thing you will get back. Because you will not be able to think of anything else. You are thinking only of worldly pleasures. So the mind will only lead you to more and more of this. If one is fulfilled, you will again run after the other. It's like that. And if you are
No, hold on. So those who worship the senses go to the senses. That's what he's saying, na?
Yes.
No, Reddy, you must satisfy Reddy Garu. I am satisfied. Reddy Garu, are you satisfied? Please, SR, please ask UK.
I'm just asking the question that when we worship the senses, go to devas. Devas means what? Again,
senses.
Again, senses only.
So we correlate that senses are nothing but devas.
It's the worldly
Yes.
pleasures. Yeah.
So devas means again, I thought it's going to be in a form of a god, and we're talking. That means you do these things also. You have a possibility, and there is a
Oh God,
to attain.
Gayatri Ma, please delete this section. What Reddy Garu has said. Delete it. No, I strongly object to that statement.
Guruji,
it is dismissed. No.
The reason beyond in Telugu, Deva means Devudu. We call it as a Devudu, God, nothing but. So I'm trying to bring that chronology of that Devas to Deva.
No, it is an interpretation in the context, sir. Please understand that. So those who worship the senses go to the senses means one who revels in the senses becomes a sensualist.
Okay. Got it.
Those who worships the material things becomes a materialist or a sensualist. So who is a materialist or a sensualist? Thanks, UK. So who is what's the definition of a materialist or a sensualist? One may be in company, one may not be in company, but as long as his thoughts are on the object of enjoyment, you are a sensualist. Means I may be amidst the sense objects, or I may be away from sense objects, but as long as your thoughts are on it, because you're thinking of it, you become it. So it is not the physical proximity with a sense object that determines you are a sensualist or not. ठीक है ना वेंकटराम जी?
Yes.
So it really doesn't matter whether you are enjoying them or not, whether you possess it or don't possess it. But as long as your mind is entertaining thoughts of it and have a value for it, you're already a materialist or a sensualist. I may not have that object with me, but what am I doing? I am smarana. What is smarana? Smarana क्या बोलते हैं? Thinking. You're relishing, you're worshipping, you're constantly
Consumed by the thought, Guruji.
consume. Yeah, the thought consumes you, you revel in it. So you may have it or not, but as long as your mind keeps worshipping it, you are a materialist. So who is a sensualist? A sensualist is not necessarily he is contact with the sense objects, but as long as his thoughts are on the object of enjoyment, he's a sensualist. Now, who is a spiritualist? In the same words, Venkatramji.
A person at least who is entertaining the thoughts and also trying to, practice some of it. At least in the pursuit of acquiring the knowledge and also trying to practice the same in his life.
So a spiritualist is one, doesn't matter which environment you are in. You can be in the marketplace or in a spiritual environment, but as long as your thoughts are on the self,
yes,
you're a spiritualist. So I can be in the marketplace and yet not be thinking of the world. I can be away from the marketplace and be thinking of the world. So we are going by the principle is as you think, so you become. So if I'm thinking of the world, I'm a materialist. If I'm thinking of the senses, I'm a sensualist. If I'm thinking of the self, I'm a spiritualist. Doesn't matter where I'm placed. It is not my physical standing or position that matters. So those who go to the senses, they revel in the senses, they become a sensualist. Now, I want to ask a question here. I don't want any answer. Please come back next week. We'll understand this. What is the okay, not what. How do you enjoy, how to sustain the joy from any sense contact? Okay. How does one sustain the joy from any sense contact? Okay, this is better. I repeat, Harish. How does one sustain? You got that, Sanjay? How does one sustain the joy from any sense contact? And the moment I ask this, Harish ji has logged in. So we'll ask him how to sustain. Rajima, does he want to shed his wisdom? Right. We will.
Yeah.
Why I say this is, as we go through a life, what we realize is we lose the joy or the charm from any sense contact. It loses its charm. Any enjoyment, you look back in your own life, it doesn't have the charm for you what it had before. But if you want to draw the same joy from any sense contact, how do you derive it? Harishi, we don't want you to give an answer because we want everybody to reflect on it. But I was pleasantly surprised you suddenly logged in. Okay. But in the context of the verse, we'll come back and see. He says those who worship the ancestors, means those who worship tradition, those who worship culture, they are stuck to orthodoxy, they're stuck to tradition, they're stuck to culture. They're very culturally bound. They're bound by the boundaries of tradition and all those orthodoxity, and become nachu. They become so stuck to it. They're so rigid. Then you can't. Why? Because they're worshipping it. Those who worship the elements go to elements. Means they become the environmentalists, the scientists, those who worship the elements or nature. But those who worship the self get to the self. As you all have a choice, so you can choose, but make a wise choice. Seek the self. Nothing short of it. Okay. So we will come back. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.